welcome to the July 22nd, 2021 meeting of the Santa Monica City Council. May we have a roll call vote? A roll call, please. I'm sorry.
Councilmember Para.
Here.
Councilmember Davis.
Here.
Councilmember Negrete.
Here.
Councilmember Brock.
Here.
Councilmember De La Torre.
Here.
There you are. Mayor Pro Tem McCollum.
Here.
And Mayor Himmelrich.
Here. And Madam Clerk, will you call the first item, please?
Okay, the first item is a closed session, public employee appointment. The title is City Manager, and we have no callers for this item.
Then we will adjourn to closed session, and I will see you on the other side. Thank you all very much. Welcome back, Santa Monica. We're returning from our closed session. Mr. Cardona, do you have a report out from our closed session?
Yes. Based on the discussion on item 1, public employee appointment title, city manager, based on the discussion in closed session, there's a recommendation that David White be appointed to serve as the city's city manager effective as of October 11th. That would require a motion and second.
So moved.
Second. So moved by Davis, seconded by Himmelrich, and may we have a roll call vote, please?
And just to let you know, we have no callers. Oh, well, no, I'm sorry.
Too late for that.
I know, I'm sorry. Is Councilmember De La Torre?
Yes.
Councilmember Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McCowan?
Yes.
Councilmember Negrete?
Yes.
Councilmember Davis?
Yes.
Councilmember Para?
Yes. Yes.
And Mayor Himmelrich?
Yes, so that passes 7-0. Yay! And John Jalili is clapping harder than I am, but we will be voting. We'll be voting on the contract on Tuesday. So that should come out with our agenda packet. Welcome, David. We're looking forward to your start date. And now may we call the next item on the calendar.
The next item is 13A, is request of Councilmember De La Torre. Consider reversing the council's previous determination that Councilmember De La Torre is disqualified from participating in, voting, or attempting to influence discussion or decisions related to the case captioned Pico Neighborhood Association et al. Versus the City of Santa Monica, currently pending in the California Supreme Court. And we have, let me see if we have any callers for this. We have no callers so far. Councilmember De La Torre, did you want to present?
Yes. I think, can everybody hear me okay, by the way?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I think, I wanted to bring this item forward because I think it was wrong to exclude me before getting the letter from the FPPC, which ruled that I do not have a conflict of interest. And now that we have that information from the FPPC, I feel it's appropriate to bring this item again to reconsider that exclusion. I mean, excluding elected officials from deliberating on matters that are important to our residents, I think is very serious. And it's something that's, it's a very important thing. And I think we're setting a precedent, for excluding council members when they don't have a conflict of interest, when the FPPC rules that. And the other thing I want to say is, there's no denying that the district, the at-large election system was implemented to exclude people, to marginalize people of color in the Pico neighborhood. I think it's irrefutable that fact is true. And for me, when the city challenged and opposed the call for justice for fair elections from the Pico Neighborhood Association and my wife, when the city decided to fight a fair system of elections, which is district elections, the city is aligning itself with that first decision in 1946 to marginalize people of color in the Pico neighborhood. This excluding me as well is part of aligning the city with that legacy. And I would just hope that we would reconsider that now that we have this information in front of us. Because I feel that it's important for me to engage in this discussion. This is something that I'm passionate about, something I care about for the future of my city, for the future of fair elections in the city of Santa Monica. And I would hope that this council would give me the opportunity to engage with you all on these important matters, important for the future of elections and also political representation in our city. I think it's important for us to reconsider, to give me an opportunity to engage. That's it.
Am I correct, Oscar, that tomorrow morning at 9:15 there's a hearing on your petition to be deemed not disqualified?
Correct. That's my understanding. Yes. I'd like to drop the lawsuit. I would like to just move forward as we said with the decision to hire a city manager. We talked about moving forward. I want to move forward. I want to drop the lawsuit. I want to participate with you all and find a way for us to work together on the future, on determining a better system of democracy in our city.
Well, let me, before we engage in the substantive discussion of this, I would like to hear a motion to continue this at least until next Tuesday, until the court, who really will have the ultimate authority on this, decides whether or not you do have a common law conflict of interest.
But the FPPC already ruled that I didn't, and I'm thinking...
That was, Oscar, different kind of conflict of interest. This is different. The FPPC ruled that you did not have a financial conflict of interest. This is a common law conflict of interest. It comes from the fact that, in essence, you are the de facto plaintiff in this lawsuit, having sat in my deposition, having testified for PNA and for the plaintiffs in this case. And I have to say it would be very unusual, for instance, if Mr. Schenkman and Mr. Grimes and those folks invited me into your strategy sessions when you were meeting with your counsel. So this is a different situation. It is not a financial conflict of interest that we're asserting. It is a common law conflict of interest. Although the truth is that regardless, I may not agree with the FPPC, but that doesn't matter. It's before the court tomorrow. And I think that we could have a decision tomorrow from what would be a higher authority than we are, since you appealed this council, even though consisting of different people, decision to the court. So that's where we are right now, and I'm simply asking that we continue it to hear what the court has to say. And I'm asking for a motion to that effect.
I would like a motion that we vote so that we can go on record on the right side of history on this matter. What happens tomorrow if the court says that I'm right and the board majority that voted to ostracize me is wrong? Like, how do we look as a city? I mean, I think it's bad.
Oscar, that's the point. We don't have to debate it. We can hear what the court has to say. Councilmember Davis.
So it's my understanding, and I'd like to hear from the interim city attorney, tomorrow is just a hearing on a demurrer. It is not a decision, presumably, on Councilmember De La Torre's substantive rights, nor is it a final hearing in the matter. The city has demurred to the complaint, which just means it's the equivalent of a motion to dismiss, but in California we call it a demurrer. But if the city wins the demurrer, then the case potentially could go away, although Councilmember De La Torre could have an opportunity to amend his complaint. Or if the city loses, it doesn't mean that there's been a substantive determination that Councilmember De La Torre has a right to participate. It just means the case goes on until there's a final determination by the court. Is that correct, Mr. Cardona?
Yes, with one qualification, which is that there was an original complaint filed by Councilmember De La Torre. We demurred to that. He has already filed an amended complaint to address some of the points raised in our original demurrer. So this is a demurrer to the first amended complaint. One of the arguments that is before the court tomorrow is that it should grant the demurrer on the basis that there's a conflict as a matter of law. But as you note, so there is a possibility that the court would rule on it. There is also the possibility that the court could deny our demurrer on a number of grounds and simply authorize the case to proceed, in which case there would not be a final determination as to whether there's a conflict.
And I will say this, that I don't think, I mean, I know one of the arguments Councilmember De La Torre makes in his papers is that this council doesn't have the right, separate and apart from the court, to determine whether or not there's a conflict of interest. I believe the city has asserted, and I believe the city is correct, that in fact this council, regardless of what the court does, has the ability to determine whether or not there's a common law conflict of interest. So I don't think we need to continue it to see what the court does, because what the court does won't presumably or has the opportunity to not be a final determination. And I think this council is fully empowered to determine whether or not there's a common law conflict of interest. And, you know, I acknowledge that the FPPC said there's no economic conflict of interest, but they were very specific in saying that they were not ruling on whether or not there was a common law conflict of interest, which says two things to me. Is one, they left it to this council to determine whether there's a common law conflict of interest, and two, with that specifically acknowledged that there could potentially be a common law conflict of interest. They did not say this is the end all and be all and there's no common law conflict of interest potential. They in fact specifically said they left that for someone else to determine, and I believe, according to the documents that we filed with the court, that this city council was empowered to make that determination. So I don't see any reason to continue it.
Well, there's one other issue that the city attorney may want to speak to. You're muted, George. I'm sorry.
In addition to that, there is a procedural issue under the council rules. Under the council rules, a motion to reconsider by a non-prevailing council member can only be made if 1 year has passed since the action was taken. That is Council Rule 12G. In this instance, the action was taken by council on January 26, 2021, and Councilmember Delatorre was not a prevailing council member. He was a non-prevailing council member, and less than a year has passed since the decision. So as a point of order, a question of order, it is for the mayor as the presiding officer to determine whether this 13 item is appropriately brought as a motion to reconsider by Councilmember Delatorre.
I have a question. George, is there a conflict of interest with me even bringing this forward?
That would be a secondary question as to whether there is a conflict. In other words, whether you, having been recused from the Voting Rights Act, have the ability to bring before the council a matter relating to that. It's also complicated by the fact that you filed a lawsuit against the city, and now you are effectively bringing a motion that asks the city to essentially waive its defense of that lawsuit, so that once again you are effectively on both sides of now a different lawsuit, the writ. But I think the first question is the procedural question as to whether you, under the council's own rules, as a non-prevailing council member, can bring a motion to reconsider.
We live in America, though, right? We're still in America, the United States of America.
Yes, we are, but there are rules that council has in place precisely for these types of situations.
So I believe that if it's a point of order, it's for me to decide. Is that correct?
That's correct. Under Rule 10b-4 and 12d, it is up to the presiding officer to decide all questions of order.
And let me ask you this. Do we have discussion on this before? Does anybody want to weigh in on this?
You may call for discussion. That's basically your discretion.
And I'm going to call for discussion. Although I am inclined to say as a point of order that this is not an appropriate 13 item and not appropriately before us. Councilmember Brock.
I just wanted to point out, I understand there are public who wish to comment on this matter. I have no idea what side.
It may be they didn't call when we called for chits. I'm sorry. I mean, it's a Thursday afternoon. We're all taking time. Yes.
Mayor, we haven't, because you haven't decided whether or not this is even going to be heard. You haven't called for chits. There are 2 callers though. But you guys need to decide if you're going to even hear and consider this item before we open it up to the public.
As I said, I'm inclined to not allow it to go forward today for the reasons contained in our rules. Is there any objection?
And Mayor, that is subject to appeal, so any council member can call for an appeal of that. in which case it would go to an appeal. The appeal would essentially have to be approved by 5 of the 7 councilmen.
Is there an appeal of my ruling?
Yes, I'm appealing.
Okay.
So under the rules, under 12D, the question that has to be asked under the rules is, shall the decision of the presiding officer be sustained? It would require, your decision can be overruled only by a 2/3 vote of the council members then present, which means that we would have to have at least 5 members of the council vote against that question. So the question has to be, shall the decision of the presiding officer be sustained? A yes vote would mean that you agree with the mayor and that this should not be heard under the rules. A no vote would mean that you agree with Councilmember Delatorre's appeal and wish to overturn the mayor's decision that this not be heard.
I have a question, George. Do we need to have a second on this motion?
No, under the rules, it is subject to appeal by any single council member. So any single council member can call for an appeal.
So let's have a roll call vote.
And George, can you say that again? If it's a yes, you agree with...
So a yes vote means that you agree with the mayor's decision. A no vote means that you agree with Councilmember Delatorre's appeal and wish the mayor's decision to be overturned.
Councilmember Parra. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, Councilmember Parr, you have a question or you want to speak? Yes, go for it.
I'm sorry, can you please repeat what your, am I echoing? I'm sorry.
It's okay.
What your motion is to, or what your...
Well, it's a ruling, so I'm required, under this rule, if Oscar is on the losing side and brings this forward within a year, it's not an appropriate attempt to have it reconsidered. In other words, because he lost the first time, he would have to wait a year to bring it back because he wasn't on the prevailing side. That's what the rule is. Okay, so I am simply standing behind the rule and saying that we should enforce it. Councilmember McCowan.
But not being on the prevailing side, they can then appeal the ruling of the mayor. Okay.
Any council member has the right to appeal a procedural ruling on on a point of order by the mayor.
Are we ready to vote? Okay. Councilmember Parra, so it's yes or no? Yes is that you support the motion by the mayor, and if it's a no, then you agree with Councilmember Delatorre. Is that right, George? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Parr, yes or no?
No.
Councilmember Davis.
Yes.
Councilmember Negrete.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McCowan.
Yes.
Councilmember Brock.
No.
Councilmember Delatorre.
No.
And Mayor Himmelrich.
Yes, so my ruling stands. That means we will not be hearing this today.
Your ruling doesn't stand. It wasn't a 5-2.
No.
The
Oh,
ruling
it
stands because there were
needed
not
5.
5 people in favor of
Kristen is
overturning.
right. Kristen is right. No, Kristen is right.
No. There were not 5 votes in favor of overturning the ruling, which is what would be required under the rules, so therefore the mayor's ruling stands.
So you,
okay.
do we need to do it again? If people didn't understand,
They're kicking me out of. Yeah.
do we need to do it again? Kristen, do we need to vote again?
No,
Oh, no, you
I
understood.
understand that it required, if we wanted to overrule your ruling, that required 5.
That's correct.
Yes. Sorry. Okay.
Powerful rule.
Right, so the ruling is upheld 4-3. Or alternatively, the motion to challenge the ruling was defeated 4-3. So,
Or also that I thought I can't deliberate on the CVRA. That's what it's really about.
in closed session, that with our lawyers, that's correct.
So my First Amendment rights are being violated. I can't talk about these things.
So, Mayor,
You can
having,
talk to anybody except when we are talking to our lawyers. To say you can't talk about anything is not only incorrect, right? It's a misrepresentation of how you've acted, because you have not only continued to talk to everybody else about this and filed an amicus brief in this lawsuit against the city that you say you represent, but you are, but excuse me, may I finish? I heard you out, right? So not only have you done that, right, but you have also continued to try to talk to those on the council about this matter, which is about the lawsuit, not about district elections, about the lawsuit, which you were prohibited from doing when you were recused. City Attorney.
I hate to break in here, but having issued a procedural ruling that this is not appropriately before the council, there's no basis for any further discussion
And Mayor,
from either side.
And Mayor, can you make an announcement to the public that this item is not going to be heard?
Yes, this item will not be heard, and and I can make a further statement that will now adjourn the meeting.
I have an adjournment.
You have an adjournment today? Fine.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Please.
I want to adjourn this meeting in memory of all the people that have fought to have representation and to have fairness in elections in the city of Santa Monica.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.